Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty online at foxnews.com. I'm Judge Andrew Napolitano here, defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. Is America bankrupt? Well, many believe we are, and my next guest is one of the few, a very select few members of the Congress who've been warning about our dire economic circumstances for many years. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are to blame for this. As many of you have heard me say, Republicans like deficits and wars, and Democrats like taxes and welfare. Where we are today didn't happen overnight. Since the creation of the Federal Reserve back in 1913, the value of the dollar has gone down by 92%. In the 125 years before the Fed started printing money, the value of the dollar went up by 13%. Both the Bush administration and now the Obama administration have added trillions to the national debt, leaving our nation either already or on the brink of bankruptcy. One thing is for sure, you can't spend your way out of debt. Today, the federal government owes over $14 trillion to creditors around the world. And earlier this week, we heard that California may be in worse financial shape than Greece, which the European Union and probably the Fed just bailed out. Who else to talk about this? Joining me now is one of America's great defenders of the Constitution and human freedom in Congress today, and author of the bestseller End the Fed. Congressman Ron Paul joins us from the nation's capital. Congressman, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge. Good to be with you.
Before we get into the bankruptcy, just a question about the latest news. Do you think that the Democrats have enough votes to pass some version of health care to send over to the Senate so they can do whatever the heck they want with it and it gets to the president's desk? Or do you think Republicans and pro-life Democrats have enough votes in the House to stop this monstrosity?
Well, I think the monstrosity will be stopped, but something will be sent. They don't want to walk away and say they got zero. So somewhere along the way, things will get a little bit worse. Medical care will be more expensive and the quality will go down. But I predict something will be passed, but not the total monstrosity that they've been working on.
How close is the United States of America to bankruptcy today? How close is the federal government to being unable to operate without the continual borrowing and printing of cash?
Well, they are totally bankrupt. If they couldn't print the money, they couldn't pay anything off. So they depreciate and devalue the dollar, and therefore they devalue, the debt as well. As long as they can print the money, the process will continue for a while longer until people lose confidence in the dollar. But there's no way they could pay the bills with the assets that they have, and that's not even talking about the entitlement system. So it's certainly insolvent. The bankruptcy will be declared when people recognize the dollar is nothing more than a devalued currency, and people lose confidence in it. And then the bankruptcy will become quite evident, and unfortunately that's when we'll have political chaos as well as economic chaos.
Do you think we will reach a time, Congressman Paul, when people won't buy bonds, that is, won't loan money to the federal government, whether it's American investors or the central banks of foreign countries?
Well, in a way, we're already there. How many people do you know buy 20-year bonds or 30-year bonds to protect their children? Nobody buys them as an investment. There's banks and special interests and foreigners, but that's all in collusion with our central bank. I mean, who knows how many trillions of dollars we give to foreign governments for them to buy our debt, and we don't even know they're monetizing our debt indirectly. I don't believe anybody really invests in long-term securities of the United States government. Now, there will be a lot of people that will park their money in short-term securities, and that's why, because they're desperate, they don't know what to do with their money, and there's a lot of cash out there. So they will, but they're not making any interest. They're actually losing when you take into consideration the inflation rate. But no, nobody's buying those things other than the gimmicks that they play by us extending credit to other central banks, and they buy up our debt. And, as long as the dollar perks along, the Chinese benefit to a degree. But a point will come when they're going to quit doing that, and there will be a panic and there'll be a rush out of the dollar.
In the introduction to your segment, I suggested that the Federal Reserve may have had a role in the temporary bailout of the Greek government. I mean, whether it did or it didn't, will we ever know that?
Probably not. Even if we had an audit, they can destroy the records and they can, block it through the courts. I asked Bernanke about this the other day, and he of course said no. But I said you're able to under the law, and he sort of looked around for assistance in the answer, and they acknowledged it. Yeah, certainly under the law, they're allowed to buy Greek debt. If they're allowed to buy Greek debt, you know they're allowed to buy California debt as well. They're not going to allow California to collapse. They didn't allow New York City to collapse. They're not going to allow California to collapse. But what they're going to encourage is the collapse of the dollar. So this is all temporary stuff, but the way they think, they have no choice but to continue to spend and borrow and print money.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the Fed tried to bail out California and did so under its super secret way of operating, but California state law requires the government of California to reveal all the loans that are made to the government? Wouldn't that be interesting if a state law trumped the secrecy of the Fed?
Yeah, but, if it's in their interest, I would think they might become careless with the law as well. I guess I've been in Washington too long. They get careless with the law and the Constitution all the time. So if California is bankrupt and they do something, they might play games with the Fed and not reveal what they're doing. But let's hope that what you say is true and that we would get to the bottom of it and the American people would know exactly what's going on.
Is your bill to audit the Fed still a real, serious, aggressive audit, as you and I and the people watching and listening to us now understand? Or have the big government powers in both parties succeeded in watering it down so that Mr. Bernanke and company don't even fear it anymore?
No, it hasn't been watered down. The language is there. It's in the housing bill, the regulation bill in the House. But a lot of roadblocks have been put in our way. Matter of fact, right now the roadblock is in the Senate because Dodd and Corcoran are working very closely to keep it out of their bill. At the same time, they want to give more power to the Federal Reserve. They want to make the Federal Reserve in charge of consumer protection. The progressives, who were for more auditing of the Fed, and help me on that, want consumer protection outside the Fed. Now, I don't want the Consumer Protection Agency, but I'd much rather have it outside the Fed than to give the Fed a reward for the kind of activity that they've had. But I think if anybody's interested in doing that, they need to get hold of Corcoran as well as Dodd and tell them, hey, lay off. We don't want to give the Fed more power.
Well said. Congressman Paul, I'm looking forward to next week when you and I will be together on the campus of Ohio State University at 7 p.m. Eastern. And FoxNews.com will stream live your speech to the thousands of folks who'll be there at 8 o'clock Eastern on Monday, March 8th. Congressman, thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.